Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we're going to be doing this really fun fall scene. We're going to be painting some birch trees. Super easy. I know you guys got this. As always, I'll make sure to put a list of everything that I used today down in the description box below, so that way you guys can check out those items and use them if you would like to. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. I am starting out this little handled tumbler. This is just a little 16-ounce handled tumbler that I purchased through Mother Tumbler. I really like this size. It's probably one of my new favorites. I went ahead and I prepped and I primed it this metallic silver color. And the reason why I went ahead and I primed it was because I'm going to be adding my glitter right into my epoxy. And I really wanted to make sure that that color was very fluid throughout. So I want more of silver and opals kind of look. So I'm using this glitter here. This is called Sally. It's kind of like a silverish opal color. And then to kind of fill in between, I'm going to add Cherish. This is just a fine silver glitter. So whatever kind of silver opals and glitters you have on hand, you can go ahead and do that with as well. If not, you can hop on over to socglitters.com, and I have those glitters there if you'd like to use these. So after I get this stirred up, I just kind of like to double check and make sure that there's enough in there. You don't want so much glitter that it kind of changes the consistency of your epoxy. You could make it stringy or super thick and make it hard to put on your tumbler. So you just want enough to be able to give it a nice coating of your glitter. So I'm just going to apply this epoxy into sections. I'm going to apply all 20 mLs. I'm not going to spread that too far around. Every time I add just a little bit of my epoxy, I kind of keep it all uniform and just wiping it up and down, making sure that that glitter kind of stays prominently in that particular place that I did it. Now here, I like to do my handle last, and I just take my finger and just kind of really rub that glitter around on there so that way it doesn't get too piled up around the handle. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put it onto my turner after I get this nice and smoothed out. And then after I get onto my turner, I'm gonna go ahead and hit it up really good with my torch first. And then I'm gonna come back through with my gloved hand and kind of evenly spread out my glitter mixture here, so that way there's no lumps of just glitter in one particular area. It'll give it a nice smooth glitter look for you. So typically this is pretty smooth for me and I can move on to the next step after this, but if yours is a little too lumpy, then go ahead and apply another coat of epoxy over top of that after this has cured, so that we have a nice smooth surface to work with for our next step. All right, she is smooth, she is cured, and she is ready to get painted on. So I'm gonna take some electrical tape and I want to tape off the top and the bottom. Now, because I'm using a handled tumbler, I'm just making sure that that tape is gonna fit enough around above the handle, so that way I can put my pinstriping around the top without it interfering with the handle. So essentially the top and the bottom will have the same width because we're just using the width of the tape to block off the top and bottom. All right, so let's get started on our background trees. These trees here, like I said, are going to be in the background of the scene that we want to do. I have some 2-inch painter's tape. I really like this because I can kind of do what I'll show you guys here in a second, but I can kind of make more out of this size tape than I could out of a smaller piece of tape. So the first thing you want to do is I'm going to start near the handle. That's a good starting point for me. And I'm going to lay half my tape down. I'll show you a little bit better here in a second what I mean. Just that one half is down, but that part is still up. That's because we want to give our trees this raw edge look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape and I'm just gonna rip it straight down. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that really quick, but this is really gonna give us that more realistic birch tree look without it being just so uniformly straight up and down. It's gonna give some real nice texture to our trees. Now I'm gonna take that piece of tape and I'm just going to scoot it over. So we're just gonna reuse that same piece of tape, and it should kind of line up with the look that you had on the other side. So it's gonna make that tree look even more realistic. So we have our first template for our first birch tree right here. Look at that. You guys are doing amazing. And I did the same thing like I did with the first piece of tape, where I only pressed down half my tape, so that way I could come through and do this another time with that same piece of tape. See, this 2-inch tape, I can use a little bit more than, like I said, a smaller piece. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna get my tape and I'm just going to line it up on the other side. You can make these trees as thick as you'd like, as small as you'd like, because if you look in nature, the trees are all different sizes. So there is no right or wrong when it comes to making art. All right, we have our first two trees down, but what about that one side? How are you gonna fill in your other tree? Simple. You're gonna line up your piece of tape right up near where your other tree is, and you're gonna come through and make sure you give it that jagged raw edge all the way down, doing the same thing. So that's a quick way to just kind of make sure that the next tree over has that jagged edge as well. And then you're just gonna take your piece of tape and bump it up next to it, making it again big or small, however you want to do it. And then you're just going to continue this process completely around your tumbler. Now, when I get over to my handle, I'm going to show you guys how I handle that. But I want you guys to have fun with this. You know, don't let this overwhelm you. This is supposed to be fun. And again, these aren't supposed to be perfect. So don't dwell on it too much if you feel like it's just not perfect. That's okay, because trees aren't perfect. All right, we're back over to the handle. You see that little piece of tape I have there? I'm just gonna line my tape up against it without covering up the raw edge there. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and rip it right down so that way I can make a tree right beyond my handle. Now I'm not gonna paint my handle. I'm just gonna paint underneath the handle. I didn't wanna do that kind of look on the handle itself, but you could if you wanted to. And then again, I'm just gonna take my piece of tape and line it up on the other side so that way I can continue on with that tree look right underneath my handle. Now, after I got this piece done, I seen it was kind of overlapping my other tree, so I just, again, ripped it, and there you go. Now we have all of our little pieces ready to be painted for our background trees. Now I'm gonna go ahead and tape up my handle because, again, I don't wanna get paint on it, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cover that up really quick. All right, let's get these trees painted. The first thing I have here is I have my blow dryer. You can use a heat gun if you'd like to. This is gonna help dry everything a lot quicker so we're not sitting here forever, you know. I also have some black acrylic paint and then just a simple brush. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and get our black paint down. This is going to be what's behind the white look to make it look more like birch bark. There we go. That was kind of a tongue twister there. So now the first thing we want to do is just take our black paint and we're going to fill in all of our exposed areas for our background of our birch tree look here. So you don't have to be too crazy with it. One coat I did is all I did. I'm going to dry it up really quick with my blow dryer. And then after I get done, I just like to verify just to make sure because you don't want it wet for this next part here. So I have my crackle medium. This is my absolute favorite way to perform crackles. I have always done it this way. All it is a medium that you want to apply liberally to the areas that you would like to be crackled. So that's all I'm going to be doing here. Now, the main thing with this medium, and I know you guys have probably even seen me recently use this, is this has to be absolutely dry before you do your paints over top. So you want to make sure that, again, you want to apply a liberal amount to your areas. And then I'm going to dry that up really good with my blow dryer. And also because we're using our blow dryer so much on our tumbler, everything's gonna dry a little bit quicker as well. So that's kind of nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish drying that up. And again, I'm gonna verify that everything is nice and dry. It's gonna have a shiny look to it, so you just wanna touch it and make sure. Now the color I'm gonna be using is called this lamb's wool, but you could use any type of kind of like a grayish white or a bright white if you'd like to. However you want your trees to look, go ahead and do it that way. So I've been washing my brush off in between each use, just so you guys know, and I'm just gonna make sure that it's dried off really good. Now you wanna make sure that your brush has a pretty decent amount of paint on it because you really just wanna go over it once. And if you do have to go over it, make sure it's very quick that you do it. You don't sit and look at it for a second and then try to do it again. You want to do it as quick as possible before those cracks really start to form, especially like I said earlier, because we've been working with our heat gun on it. So this is gonna start to dry pretty much instantly as soon as you put your paint on. So again, if you see it's not perfect because it's gonna have that crackled look anyways, it's not supposed to be perfect. So just brush your paints on. And then after you get your paints on, you're gonna go ahead and hit it up again with your blow dryer and you're gonna see those crackles really start to form. And then especially once we start peeling back that tape, those birch trees are really going to start to emerge. All right, moment of truth. Let's start peeling back this tape. Oh, this made me so excited. I absolutely love how this looks, and I hope you guys really love it as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish peeling all my tape off. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the tape around my handle as well, but I'm gonna leave the tape on the top and the bottom because I wanna add just a little bit more look to this tumbler. So I'm going to take a size 0 brush and I'm going to mix up some of my two paints that I use so that way I can make kind of this more of a background color and just little trees in the background. So I'm showing you guys how I'm holding it with my hand here, and all you want to do is just take it and twist up. So I'm twisting the brush as I go up, and it's just going to give kind of more like branches in the very, very back. So again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I just really wanted to add just a little bit more tree action, I guess, to it. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and do this. But if you do decide to do this, again, it doesn't have to be perfect, because it's trees and branches and everything aren't perfect. So just go ahead and paint your little bit of extra background in there. And after I got done with my trees, I wanted to just really put some fine branches coming off my trees in the back. So I have just a gray Posca marker. You get any type of acrylic marker. It doesn't have to be Posca, okay? And I'm just gonna add just a little bit more details to my trees. I'm just doing, again, kind of like with what I did with the trees, just kind of twisting my marker as I go up, making sure that everything isn't perfectly straight. You want it a little jaggedy. Now these birch trees are perfect the way that they are, so you don't have to do this, but I went ahead and I took my black acrylic marker and I'm just gonna make some knots on my trees here and there and just kind of fill in some extra little places. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, again, it looked fabulous the way it was. So that's all I'm going to do is just kind of highlight a few places here and there, and then we'll be ready to move on to that next step. All right, I fussed with it enough, okay? You got to know when to stop, right? So I'm going to go ahead and peel back the tape, and I'm going to go ahead and add my pinstriping now. So I'm just going to use a very pretty champagne textured metallic here. I just really like the way this looks, and I think it kind of goes with everything there. So I went ahead and did the pinstriping right above our tree line and right below our tree line, kind of framing off the center. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and apply a coat of epoxy over top of what we've done so far. I'm gonna add a little bit of these, I think they're maple leaves. I know it's not birch tree leaves, but anyway, I liked it. So this is called Hello Fall, and I'm just gonna add just a very tiny amount into my epoxy, just to kind of give it just a little bit more of that fall feel. And I'm gonna make sure that I apply all of this epoxy to my tumbler. I think I had about 15 milliliters of epoxy there, so I'm gonna go ahead and apply that. I'm gonna place it onto my turner. I'm gonna make sure that I hit it up really good with my blowtorch. I'm gonna let that dry, and they'll be ready to move on to the next step. So I wanted to add my monogram to this tumbler, so I'm going to head and use this interlocking vine monogram. I absolutely love it. It's such a beautiful monogram. I want to make sure to put down there where I got that from. And then I just cut everything out. I did the textured champagne metallic along with the white for the offset. So I went ahead and layered that up. And now once your tumbler is cured, you want to go ahead and give it a good sanding. You want to make sure you get your rim, and you want to be very careful around your handle. You don't want to sand it down too far and get back down to that silver finish of your tumbler there. We're going to go ahead and clean that up really good, and then we're going to get moving on to the last finishing touches of our painted trees. So I knew I didn't want my monogram to be too big on here. I didn't want it to take away from the scene, so I just made it very simple, very small. I think it's about 2 by 2, and I'm just gonna place it towards the bottom here, and I think it just really added just a little bit of elegant touch to this. Okay, so you could leave this as is, go ahead and put your final coats on, but I really wanted to add just some more of these trees. Now, these trees are gonna be in our foreground, so they're gonna be up front, and I want them to go from the top to the bottom. So I want them to cover everything, kind of almost giving maybe this 3D illusion to them. So we're gonna do the same exact process as we did the ones in our backgrounds. We're gonna take our tape, we're gonna smooth down the one side, we're gonna rip our tape in half, and we're gonna make this tree a little bit bigger. Now, I didn't want to paint over the monogram, so I'm gonna go as close as I possibly can to my monogram, making sure that I still, have a big enough tree there. And I'm also gonna tape up the bottom as well, so that way I don't accidentally paint my bottom. There we go. And I'm gonna do another tree around the back, so I'm gonna have 2 bigger trees in the foreground here. But I actually kind of wish I would have done one more like on this side, so opposite of the handle on the other side, so 3 big trees all together, but it is what it is. I did 2 big ones, so. So after I got my 2 big trees kind of structured out for myself, I decided I wanted to add branches coming off the trees, so I'm going to show you guys how I did that as well. So I'm going to come back over to my first tree here, and about where I want my branch to be after I move my hand out of the way, I'll show you. I ripped a piece of tape in half, almost kind of like how we did the main trunk itself, and I'm going to bring that piece up, and that's going to expose where we want a branch to come off of our tree. So now all I have to do is take more tape and make sure I have those jagged edges, and I'm going to complete it going up and over the top of my tumbler here, so that way it just doesn't stop abruptly right off the tree in that one spot, unless you want it to. I mean, you know, it's completely up to you, but I'm just going to go ahead and block that off and make sure it finishes its journey all the way to the top. And I'm also going to do the same thing for the other tree around the back as well. The only thing I wish I would have done here is add branches off to each side, so not just one side, so that way it kind of connected together on each side, so they kind of would loop over each other. I thought that would have looked pretty cool. And another thing you want to keep in mind is that your branches are going to get thinner the higher up they go. So if you look at a tree, the branches get thinner. So make sure you kind of keep that momentum so that way they're not too thick all the way up. All right, our trees are all mapped out for us. I'm just verifying that everything is nice and pressed down. I have that tree here, this tree here, and again, it's going to go over top of everything, giving us that kind of 3D painted look. And again, just like with the trees and our background, we're going to do up our black acrylic paint first. We're going to go ahead and give it a nice coating. You might want to give it 2 on this one just to make sure it's nice and coated, so that way you can't see the trees underneath through it, just in case, I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and paint on my black. I'm going to hit it up with my hair dryer here, and then I'm going to start coating it with my crackle medium. And again, I'm going to come through, apply my crackle medium liberally, and then I'm going to hit it up again with my heat gun, or not my heat gun, my blow dryer. I'm going to double check and make sure that it is nice and dry before we move on to painting. Now, I'm going to be painting it differently this way. Instead of going up and down, I'm going to be doing side to side this time, and I just really feel like it gave it just a little bit more character. So taking my paint, I'm going to load up my brush, and I'm going to make these sideways strokes just like this. So simple, and I really feel like it gave the tree more of kind of a rounded look too. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just paint it on. Try not to touch it too much after you get your paint applied. Then you're just going to hit it up one last time with your heating source or blow dryer, whatever you like to use. You're going to peel that tape back and see your masterpiece. And of course, now all that is left to do is add your last finishing coats of epoxy onto it, and she is ready to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.